Do you think that we are centered? Do you think that we are even?
Sure.
Can I pull this?
Mm-hmm.
It's been there. Oh, I didn't get it. I think I just curled it. It's been there for weeks. Every time that we film, I see it. You want to have a moment to have your snacks before we start?
Yep, this last one. The wall is good.
Looks good, eh?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to wait for you to stop your smacking.
Like a camel.
Mm-hmm.
They're chewy.
Yeah, you picked like the chewiest candy right before we started. Hello everyone and welcome back to Foster the Meeple, a channel all about
board games.
And
board gamey things.
Exactly. We are here today to do another board game snapshot. See, it was still too loud. People will complain. Board game snapshots. We understand that Jeff hurts your ears if you have headphones on. Jeff has one baja volume. Well, actually he has two. It's either 10 out of 10 or a 1 out of 10. There's no in between. Our board game snapshot videos are all about doing 5 mini board game reviews. And we have 5 games here today that we're very excited to talk about. And they were all sent to us for review. So generally we get our Patreon community to vote for some, but we have a backlog. So we got to get to it.
We got to
You
get
know
to
what
it.
I mean? Speaking of getting to it, let's just jump in. I just wanted to make sure that was still lit. It's still lit in here. The first game that we are going to talk about today is Wingspan Asia. Now, this is upside down. Big seat. This is Wingspan Asia. This is the newest expansion for Wingspan. So there's already Oceania and there is European. Yeah. I feel like there's another one. Maybe, maybe not. This is the only one that we own. We have played the European expansion. We have not played the Oceania expansion, which I feel like we need to get because everyone says it's amazing.
To get it. Yeah, I agree. Wingspan Asia adds ultimately more game. You can add Wingspan Asia to the base game of Wingspan, so you have more bird cards. There's like new eggs. There's some upgraded rulebook for the base game, and there are some rewritten goal cards. You can use Wingspan Asia just to complement base Wingspan. However, there are also 2 more game modes that are included in Wingspan Asia. The one we've played is called Duet Mode, and it's for 2-player.
1, 2.
And ultimately, in Duet Mode, you will have a duet board. On the duet board, every time you light a bird, you will be taking a duet token off of your habitat and placing it onto the duet board.
Yeah.
Depending on the type of bird, the habitat it was played in, limits where you can place the duet token. That duet, I'm struggling with duet.
Say duet more. I don't think you're saying it enough.
That duet token will allow you to maybe get a bonus.
It allows you to get more points at the end because you're trying to build a line.
With the duet board, there are goals. Unlike in regular Wingspan, in this mode, the duet board has all of the goals that you are both fighting over. And in most cases, it's either like whoever ends up in second gets 0 points. So those are pretty key to fight over.
Yeah, and they're not specific to like what you've got going on your player mat, which is what is more likely in regular Wingspan. This all has to do with the duet board. So like who has more X on the duet board? Who is closer to the edge on the duet board? Those types of things. Yeah,
and that's called the duet variant, and it's meant for 2-player, which is what we played. I really enjoyed it.
I loved it.
I thought it was just a really cool way to play Wingspan differently.
Yes, and I do want to mention, like you can play this without the base game. Like you can just play with
you would play
cards.
Duet mode with just this box.
Yes, and it comes with your player board and it's dual-sided. So one side you can use for regular Wingspan Asia Wingspan, and the other side is if you happen to have the Oceania expansion. So it's a dual-sided player board.
And the other variant that's included in Wingspan Asia is one we haven't played yet. It's called Flock. And ultimately it's for 6 to 7 players. And from what I can understand from reading about it, it just makes Wingspan a 3v3 or 3v4 experience. So it's like party Wingspan, basically. You're playing as a team in order to complete the bonus goals that each team are competing over.
Now, whether or not we liked it, I loved it. I love Wingspan in general, and the duet board that we played with just adds like an extra something to a 2-player game, because generally we play Wingspan at 2 players. We obviously have played it at many other player counts, but I say that we play most at 2 players, so this really kind of adds just a little extra something for when you are playing it 2 player. It's almost like there's a whole other side quest that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, Wingspan, normal based Wingspan's, in my opinion, good at 2 player.
Yeah, I love it.
But this is just a different way to play the game. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Beautiful.
And it played in about 40 minutes.
Yeah, I would say so.
And not at all difficult to learn.
I would say that if you are a lover of Wingspan, obviously it's a no-brainer that you may want to try this. But I would say, especially if you play Wingspan at 2 players, or if you want to try it with a larger group, now that we have a larger play group, I'm really excited to try the flock version of this just to see how it changes things up. I love Wingspan. I want all of it. It's been one of my favorite games since we got into the hobby. The new birds are awesome. Like, the triggers that happen are great. Too. There's no tower in this one, so if you do just get this one, because you could buy this and just use this as a 2-player game, but it doesn't come with the dice tower.
No, it comes with a little
it's like a little
square
cardboard
wooden looking plank piece that you use instead.
Yeah. This game was sent to us for review from Stonemaier Games. I think we forgot to mention.
I thought you didn't say it because you said at the beginning that all of these
games were sent to us for review, but yes, from Stonemaier, so thank you.
We will make sure to mention who sent them.
Yes. Because some of them, it's not the publisher that sent them. So
we have Splendor Duel from Space Cowboys, and this one was sent to us from Asmodee, Canada.
All right, so Splendor Duel is a 2-player version of Splendor. Now, Jeff has a lot of experience with Splendor.
Not a lot.
Well, you've played it more than me anyway. I've only ever played Splendor once on BGA, so it was a little bit more, I guess, of not a learning curve because it's a very simple game, but it was almost like a whole new game for me, whereas you have a little bit more experience with the original game. So essentially this is a 2-player version of Splendor where you are trying to make different combinations, or you're collecting different gems and pearls and gold in order to buy different cards from a market, and then when you buy a card from a market, it gives you a lasting gem that you can then use to buy more cards in the market.
You're basically engine building.
It's an engine builder.
Cool thing about Splendor Duel is there's this new board that has all of the gems on it, and ultimately both players are, with certain actions, drafting those gems into their collection. And once those gems are gone, they're gone off the board, they can't be taken. But you can only take up to 3 horizontally, diagonally, or vertically in a row. So you kind of have to pick and choose which ones you're going to take. It becomes very mean. It makes Splendor very mean, which I love. And ultimately, other than that, there's privilege tokens as well. So there's only 3 in the game, and players are going to be battling for those, and those let you take like a bonus at the beginning of every turn action that you have. Ultimately, is the fundamental differences. The same mechanic of Splendor of spending your gems and your wild golds in order to recruit royalty or nobles to your cause, so that you produce like a couple of blue gems and then a black, and then it becomes cheaper and cheaper to bring nobles to your cause, essentially.
You're collecting crowns and prestige points.
Yeah.
It's a great gateway game, just like Splendor, but I think from my one experience playing regular Splendor, I prefer this one. I really
liked it. I liked how much more mean it was.
I mean, is this like a game that is going to blow me away? No. It's probably also not a 2-player game that I'm going to reach for over some others necessarily. However, I do think if you are relatively new to the hobby and you want to get into Splendor, but you're a 2-player primary household, I think this is a great option. This is something that I would introduce to a ton of people if I want to get them into games. And it was fun, it was quick, and it was easy to learn. So you can't complain about that.
Yeah,
it was pretty.
I think we played in 30 minutes.
Yeah. Okay, so for me, and it's interesting that this messed my brain up, because usually this is something that gets you, like when we'll talk about another game, but I was trying to be like, Jeff's like, why aren't you buying cards? I'm like, I don't have enough stuff. And I'm trying to like count my things and like look at what's in the market, and there's just a lot in the market. So I found it a lot to keep track of in my brain. I don't know why that was, but I just did. But that is Splendor Duel. Pachow. Next up, we have from Stronghold Games, Dulce.
And Gabbana.
Fendi and
I don't know the words to this.
Karen, they be sharing all the money, got me. I don't know all the words. Do you guys remember that song? Okay, so this is Dulce, and this was sent to us from Stronghold Games, so thank you to Stronghold Games for sending this along. Dulce is a game about being a confectioner, and I know what you're thinking. Are you guys obsessed with being confectioners? A little bit. Kinda.
Apparently.
So essentially in Dulce, this is another engine builder game.
Oh.
And it hurts Jeff's brain.
I don't know what it was about this game, but it melted it.
This is my kind of game. So basically each player gets one grid, and on your grid there are 4 starting cafes that you have. Each player also starts with a stack of cards numbered 1 to 20, I think. So one player leaves their stack of cards as is in order, and the other player shuffles, and then they draw a card and they announce what the number is. So let's say it's number 3. The other player finds card number 3, and then you have 3 options for actions. You can either build a cafe. The cards are double-sided. One side has a cafe, one side has a field. So you can either build a cafe, put that in front of you. You can plant a field and put the field side down on your grid. 24 cards. Put the plant side down on your grid and then produce the resources on that card. Or you can harvest. And if you harvest, you are harvesting either a full row or column on your grid of those resources and distributing them among your cafes. So each cafe has either 1 on the starting board or 2 types of resources that they need in order to produce goods. What's really interesting about this game is that each of those resource spaces has a set of rings around it. Mm-hmm. So some have 1, some have 2, and some have 3. If you have a cafe that holds a resource with 3 rings, once you use that, it then creates a byproduct, and you can move that resource to another space that has 2 rings. And then from 2 rings of the same type, from 2 rings down to 1 ring. It's essentially like a cascading effect. Mm-hmm. So you have to be really careful with the way that you lay out your starting resources, knowing that you're going to be able to fill up other spaces, because you can't score your cafe unless it's full for resources. Once you score it, those resources trickle down. Every time that you cannot use one of your resources and you have to get rid of it, you feed your chickens. Mm-hmm. I love it. So you have this little chicken marker that moves along the board, and then during your harvest stage, you can actually spend some chickens to make some eggs to use as a wild resource. Mm-hmm. Essentially, this is a big engine builder game. You go through your entire deck of cards. Whoever has the most points at the end wins. You score 1 point for each full cafe during scoring. Mm-hmm. That's basically the game. It's relatively simple to actually learn once you get into it, but it is very brain burny. Yeah. Like, it is not a complex game, but it is one that is going to...
Simple mechanically, difficult strategically.
Yeah, so basically, like, Jeff would be like, I need you to just watch me while I score.
Oh, man.
Because I don't know. Because there were times where you were going to put your resources away, but I was like, oh, no, you can actually put it there. Yeah, because you have to watch the rings.
This one broke me.
Yeah. I loved it because I really love this kind of game. Number 1, it's super cute. Yep. The theme is really cute. It's very puzzly. There's some sacrifice that you're going to have to make when you're like laying your fields, but then when you do that, you get to feed your chickens and all of this stuff. Thematically, I thought it was awesome. I would say the downfall for this is the actual like resources. The colors are very similar. I think you struggled with that a little bit. And there's just a lot to pay attention to.
Yeah, if you like puzzly games, definitely check this one out. If you struggle with a little bit of like analysis paralysis and stuff, just be somewhat mindful that there are a ton of like little decisions you need to make each round, each turn to optimize everything you do. Mm-hmm. I think it'd be interesting to play at like the full 3 or 4 player count. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was enjoyable. Definitely more your cup of tea than mine.
And there is a solo mode. I haven't tried out the solo mode, but I might. But it does play 1 to 4.
All right, next up, we have a small box game.
Yeah, this is travel size.
We have Burncycle from Chip Theory Games, who were kind enough to send this to us. Mm-hmm. Burncycle is a cooperative infiltration game. where you are playing as AI or robots.
Robots.
And you all have somewhat asymmetrical player powers, and you can pick up gear and you can upgrade. And ultimately, what you're trying to do is navigate through a facility and not get caught. Every time I played this or think about it, I go back to, you've never played this game, but Metal Gear Solid. It's the video game that reminds me so much of this, where you're just sneaking around bad guys and trying not to alert them, try not to make a lot of noise in order to achieve your objectives. The really cool thing in Burncycle is there is a Burncycle, and that's kind of how your action selections happen. So the Burncycle is like a sequence of actions that you're allowed to take on your turn, but it deteriorates over time. So you have to work collectively in order to revamp the Burncycle so that you're able to continue taking the actions you're required to take throughout your mission, because you have to kind of navigate through 2 levels of floors, I guess, in order to kind of escape and achieve your objectives. There's also this really cool sideboard, which is like a network thing where you're actually kind of hacking into the network and trying not to get caught. So you're manipulating these pegs around and trying not to get pinged to make your life easier within the facility. Burncycle is a big box, beautiful production, as Chip Theory Games does.
Yep.
Cooperative infiltration game. We also got an opportunity to play this at Dice Tower West with Shannon Wedge, who worked on this game. And she actually showed us the metal miniatures that you can get for this as an expansion. And they're, chef's kiss. Not one that you were super into. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It is a lot.
There is so much going on.
I'm going to move this.
There's just a lot going on. There's a lot to consider. It was a lot for me to wrap my head around. It's definitely not my type of game. I would say this is something that even before playing, I was already kind of I don't know. It just seems like it's a lot. It's very cute. My robot was called either Bit or Bite, and Ilya was the opposite, Bit or Bite. So I like that part because we were like twin robots. But yeah, I think it's a little bit overwhelming. I think it's the type of game that you need to play a couple of times, but there's a ton of variety within this game. So you're not going to be playing the same game twice, basically. So yeah, it's just a lot.
You also need someone that's super dedicated to learn and teaching this game. I mean, again, there's a ton of nuance in how all the little things work, how the Burncycle works, how the movement happens, and how because you can technically break through walls and stuff. But there is an amazing how to play.
There's a freaking amazing
our friends Kavre, Ilya, and Tyler. So if you do have this and you're looking to figure out how to play it, go check those guys out. But that's Burncycle from Chip Theory Games. Big box, bigger heart.
Last game we have to talk about is 3,000 Scoundrels, and this was sent to us by Asmodee Canada, but is published by Unexpected Games. Are the same publishers of The Initiative and the same designer, Corey
Kaniska.
I never know if I'm saying it right.
I think that's
it, though.
We nailed it.
3,000 Scoundrels. I actually knew nothing about it when we got it. It's one I think that you saw and you're like, oh, that looks really cool. I saw it on one of the Watch It Played anticipated games videos, and we played it and we freaking loved it. So essentially,
we played it at 2-player.
So in 3,000 Scoundrels, you are playing a little game of poker, but not really. So you have your little player mat in front of you, and in front of you there are slots for different cards from ace all the way up to 6. You start with a deck of cards, which are essentially like playing cards, and you have 0 ace to 6. So 0 is kind of in there. On your turn, what you're going to be doing is you're going to take one card from your hand, you start with 4, and you're going to lay it in front of you in one of those card slots. Now, you could be telling the truth. So say it's the 3rd slot and you have the number 3. You could be telling the truth, or you could be lying. And the other players that you're playing with have an opportunity to call you on your bluff, which is going to come into play later in the game for reputation. But essentially, you're laying a card down in one of the card slots, and then you are taking any of the associated actions either on the board or from one of your scoundrels that is going to also be in front of you, because you're going to be hiring scoundrels throughout the game.
And you might be like, how many scoundrels are in the game?
Where's the thing? It says right, it's 3,000. So if you're wondering how is that possible, you get a stack of cards of base Scoundrels. They will have different personality traits. So innovative, or burly, or funny, or rich, or whatever. And then you have clear cards that go on top of them that give them some kind of an occupation. So you might have an innovative chef, as an example. So they're clear cards that go in card sleeves and you slide them together to create a combination. And every time you play, the options are going to be different. So you're hiring Scoundrels, and the Scoundrels all have abilities that will trigger at different times. So going back to me playing a card in my 3 spot, if I have a Scoundrel in front of me with the number 3 on it, then I get to trigger what their special ability might be. And they all have different special abilities, and some of them trigger once, and some of them you can trigger over and over again. So that is a big piece of the game, but what you're trying to do is you're trying to collect different tech. So you're trying to collect that by stealing safes, and the safes have different amounts of tech in them. Some of the Scoundrels have tech on them. This is kind of like a futuristic Western.
So there was some futuristic traveler that came and had a bunch of future tech with them, and they just disappeared and left it around the landscape. And these 3,000 Scoundrels are trying to like rummage up all this future tech.
Yes. So you're basically peeking at different safes to see how much tech is, and then you could put chips out to be like, oh yeah, this is a 2. So you might put a 2 on it because it's going to get you an extra point at the end, or you might put like a 6 on it to make it seem more lucrative. So other people might try and steal that safe, and you could be like, sucker, it's a freaking 2, because you want higher numbers. So this game involves a lot of bluffing, which is why I do think it would play best at higher player counts. It plays up to 4, 2 to 4. However, I do think the bluffing actually worked quite well.
I enjoyed it at 2.
Game.
I think it would. I enjoyed it too. It would be optimal at 4.
So there's a bunch of different things that you can do within this game, but essentially that's it. For your first game, you play over 2 days, which is 8 rounds. In a regular game, you play 3 days, so that would be 4 times 3, which is 12. Math. And in a more in-depth game, you also have a little asymmetry that comes into play based on the character that you're using.
Which I'm excited to try out.
Yeah, I'm really excited to play this with more players and with the asymmetry. But even at 2 players, I found the bluffing worked well. I thought it was really cool. It's unlike anything that we've played.
Agreed.
I, generally speaking, love Corey Konieczka's designs. I think he's great.
This game's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
The artwork's incredible.
It's unique.
I don't think you'll be able to see it, but like there's like a little comic strip here. Like it's, yeah.
It's super fun. I highly recommend it if it's something that you think that you're interested in. All right, so those are the 5 games that we had to talk about in this board game snapshot. Very interested to know if you've played any of these games. What do you think? What do you like? What do you not like? Are there any that you're excited to play, etc.? All the questions. That is all that we have for today. So if you're interested in buying board games like any of the 5 that we talked about today, you should first start by checking your friendly local gaming store. And for us, that is
the Boardroom Game Cafe.
Heck yeah, it is. That's all we have. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see,
please subscribe.
We hope to see you again soon. And now we say goodbye. Goodbye.
Later days.
I think, though, that we might end up having to push the table out like that when we film to give a bit more depth. You know, we're not very deep. We're pretty shallow.
Or we're deep. Also got lid lift.
Lid lift, lid lift. We need to get the nesting box, I guess.
So unlike in wet Jesus. We have to get new jokes.
No, never. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean bluffing's again not really a thing that I love super muchly.
No, I don't. He doesn't love it super muchly
I don't know
at
where
all.
I was going with my verbiage there. You know, with the
with the clear. Totally. I know what that means.